There's so much to talk about my Oscorp Tower build that I'm going to be splitting this into 3 videos. The first one right here will focus on the design and building process. The second one will be a full time lapse of the build. And the final one will be a full walkthrough of the tower and all its rooms. When I expanded my city last summer from just being on this 7-foot window mantle to what it is now, I wanted to add a couple more skyscrapers that would complement my Avengers Tower, so that I would have lots of variation in building height. Pulling the city out of just the mantle also allowed for the possibility to go much higher with the buildings, as I was able to lower my underground section to just this area below the mantle, lowering the ground level to where the mantle starts, and allowing for some even taller buildings if I wanted to with this extra 1.5 feet of ceiling space. When I came across this Oscorp Tower designed by LegoFan21 on Rebrickable, I knew what I wanted to do. What I loved about LegoFan's design was how they used the Technic pieces for this hexagon shape on the wall. What I didn't really like was this plain white back of it and how stubby it was. I knew I wanted mine to look detailed from all angles and be at least 3 feet tall. I wasn't set on any specific height yet, it just needed to look right proportionally to the standard 32 by 32 base plate it was going to be built on, and be able to contain all the Spider-Man floors I wanted to show. I also knew I wanted it to operate in a similar fashion to my Avengers Tower, with a working elevator and one full side panel that pulled off to reveal an interior of floors that would slide out of the build for access. The next thing I did was study LegoFan's pictures as well as screenshots of the tower from the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I wasn't quite sure how LegoFan was attaching the hexagon part to their build, but I could see all the connection points visible from the sides, making it look to only be lightly connected from the top and bottom. That type of design wasn't going to work for me, as with my added height, it would be very floppy. I was going to have to find a way to connect them all from the sides, not the top and bottom, as many more points are possible that way. So it would not only keep the hexagon portion sturdy, but the hexagon would also aid in how sturdy the actual tower was. I decided the easiest panel to be the removable one would be the portion of the tower that overlaps and sticks out at an angle towards the top. I figured that the best way to get this unique angled panel to be as rugged as possible would be to build it entirely out of Technic pieces, only converting to standard Lego slopes towards the top. So that means I knew whatever height this ended up being, it would be one that would have the hexagon section and the Technic section ending at around the same point. And it naturally ended up at the height where it is. In my Bricklink Studio design, I had the Technic panel double supported by not just Technic pins, but bars inside of those Technic pins as well. Unfortunately, when put to practice, those bars don't fit inside of the 3 long pins, so now I have a bag filled with a few hundred 3 long Lego bars. After studying multiple images of the Amazing Spider-Man Tower, I wasn't able to really tell just how many sides there were, and I guess that's the main point of the architecture. Just a lot of menacing, hard, sharp angles across the whole building. While the tower itself was computer generated, the lobby was a real location, the Hearst Building in New York City. So I looked up multiple pictures of that building and ended up going with a design that would have the first 2 stories at the base look like a marble building, just like the real Hearst Building. It was going to be tan colored almost entirely while still having as much texture as possible. So I have all these grill pieces, rail pieces, masonry pieces, whatever I could use to just make that texture as detailed as I could. As I knew this part was going to look drastically different from the rest of the tower, I made sure to keep certain aspects of the design the same, like using the same windows with the same window color tint that the back wall of the tower has, and having the 2 corners on the front cut in on a diagonal, also like the rest of the tower. After the traditional lower floors, I converted the tower to an uneven hexagonal shape to give off that feeling of many asymmetrical walls, while still actually staying simple enough so that the multiple floors could use the Lego system to its maximum potential in terms of layout. I played around with different wedge plates until I found ones that fit inside of the Technic panel. and built a 2-layered floor that would sink into the rail system, with the bottom layer being 1 stud smaller than the top. A 3rd layer of tiles would come later. I knew when designing the rest of the tower that the lower level would consist of a lobby that looks similar to the Amazing Spider-Man movie, with not much else besides a large escalator and a giant screen atop it. I then wanted a balcony with a lunch area that would wrap around to the elevator in the back. I knew this was going to present some challenges, so I figured it would be easiest to do everything else first and then go back to it. Since Technic pieces like this snap inside of standard Lego pieces, my idea for the hexagonal section was to take the largest Technic piece, this 15 stud lift arm here, and put them atop each other, pushed into snot pieces like this one. Then have the snot pieces connect with 2 wide bricks into the inner wall, where the windows are, which of course needed to be green with green windows. So I'd have to periodically skip snot connections on the Technic lift arm for connections into the inner wall. However, I'd also have to skip even more so that I could attach whatever I was going to use for the hexagons into these Technic lift arms on the side. I ended up using these 2 Technic pieces, alternating to make the hexagons. After a lot of playing around, I found 4 lines of them with this 2 long connector added to the side here would take up exactly 14 studs. So 16 once attached to the lift arms, and then 18 once attached to the snot pieces. I used an alternating connection system where every other hexagon connection would attach to the lift arm, and then every remaining hole in the lift arm, every one not being used to support the hexagons, would be pushed into a snot piece, and then I would remove snot pieces as needed to connect to the window wall that was relatively straightforward on the back wall. But the front wall here, where the vertical Oscorp sign is, added another level of complexity, as I needed to make all the same connections plus connecting a 3rd layer of wall on the outside of the hexagon section where dark gray snot pieces would be used for this trim here, and it would extend the entire length of the tower. Since it's a bunch of 1 stud double slopes attached to 1 stud wide plates, and the largest of these plates is 12 studs long, I knew I would have to have at least 2 snot connections per 12 stud plate, preferably 1 at the top and 1 at the bottom of each plate, so the plate wouldn't pop out. I unfortunately had to forgo that for this single one right here. This section had yet another level of complexity to it, as those gray snot pieces had to connect to this inner snot system for the 6 wide plates where the Oscorp sign is, all the way up to this corner, while also periodically connecting to the inner wedge bricks here. It took a lot of trial and error, but I finally made everything work. While on the topic of the 6 wide plates here, hiding them, you can see this is just a lot of round bricks, or plates with this rounded 2-plate high snot piece every 5 plates in the middle, skipping the connection points where a 6x16 plate would meet with another, as there'd be no hole to push it in right there. This section is only able to connect on those inner middle holes of a plate. These other 2 columns cannot have any snot connections, as the geometry doesn't line up with the plate, just those center holes. Moving around the corner, the walls go out yet another stud for these black slopes. They have no connection points to the inner wall here on the lower levels because I wanted the inner wall to stay a solid dark gray color on the inside. But they do connect to be 2 studs deep and help a lot with the stability of this tower once they reach the elevator section, as that part of the build isn't visible. I added windows to the floors in the inner wall here as they became more visible when this slope pushes into the back corner, getting smaller and smaller as it reaches the top. They are dark gray here, but black in the actual build, as the dark gray ones were not on the LEGO bestseller Pick-a-Brick, and I couldn't find the amount I needed from any of the sellers I was already using on Bricklink. If I were to change anything about the exterior of this building, it would be changing them back to dark gray, as I think it would blend in better. But black's not that bad. Moving around to the next side, you see this is just a lot of stacked wedge bricks. They're all 4 studs long, so each one has 3 inner corners. The middle of these inner corners serves as the rear corner of the elevator shaft. Every 6 wedge brick stack, I connected it to the main build. Hence, this 2 wedge and then these connections on the side. The elevator shaft has this 1 stud wide opening along the entire exterior. This is so, just like in my other elevators on the Daily Bugle in the Avengers Tower, the elevator can be manually moved to different floors with the lever on the outside. And now we're back all the way around the tower to the back hexagon wall. All three main walls and the elevator shaft are permanently attached to each other and then attached to the top roof of the building here, where the helipad is. You can see here's a door to enter the elevator and then a separate door to where Norman Osborn's penthouse is. That transparent section on the elevator shaft roof is Bricklink telling me that two pieces are overlapping each other. When building, I found out there was a lot of this going on in the elevator, especially because I was copying and pasting a lot and I didn't delete all the pieces I needed to delete. Because of this, I ordered way too many black wedge pieces. But some of the extras I ordered have already come to great use, making perfect stairs in my latest Avengers Tower upgrade. All of the floors below are on the same rail system, which occurs every 6 bricks and 2 plates, or just over every 3 windows. It's enough for a full door, a level of plates to hold the walls in, and then a level of tiles on top of that. In the back, you can see the elevator doors here are held in with 8 wide rail plates, a method I learned from one of Teal Bricks and Paradise's videos. The only drawback to this method are that the doors are hard to reclose once opened all the way, but the rest looks amazing. Way better than the actual doors I was using for the Daily Bugle in the Avengers Tower. I'm not going to go into any details right now on what's contained in each floor, I'll save that for the walkthrough video, but I will show you how each floor is designed. I used the largest plate I could so that it would stay as sturdy as possible here. There's a 16 by 16 stud plate on both the black and gray levels of the floors. The lower 2 laboratory floors are double height. Right here, you can see my kinetic chamber that I designed for when Norman Osborn changes into the Goblin for the first time in the Raimi Spider-Man. The idea was that I could pull this lever in and out of the window with a minifigure attached to it, and it wouldn't get stuck on anything. It looked like it should work here. You'll see how well it worked in reality in the walkthrough. I used these letter print bricks in my design, but in the final build they will be stickers, as I found out afterwards these letter pieces are from the 60s and cost a fortune. I have a lot of stickers I need to design for this tower, for signs like this and all the TV monitors. Here's my Photoshop file of them. Like I did with King of the Hill, I'm going to print them out onto sticker paper, cut them out, and then place them onto the build. That vending machine is based on the same design as the one found at the Daily Bugle. Back to the lower level, I realized that the balcony and wall made it hard to look into the lobby, so I redesigned this wall to also be removable, as well as this main part of the balcony and these exterior walls here. I wasn't sure what to put in the space under the escalator, especially since it was only accessible from this hallway beyond the security desk, so I made it the mailroom. That meant the only spot for a lobby-level bathroom was under the elevator over here. One final important design element was one that I didn't figure out until everything was finally built in reality, and that was how this panel was going to attach without slipping off. I ended up with this system of having some slopes at the bottom to hold the corner in here, and this little piece at the top where I can detach and reattach to hold the panel in place. So there you have it, a detailed look in my entire design process for this massive tower. Stay tuned for my time-lapse of the build, and once I have the minifigs and stickers from the official set, watch my full video walkthrough filled with Oscorp-related scenes from the Spider-Man movies and shows.